Good Wednesday evening, everyone. I'm Scotty Powell here with the Carolina Weather Group. Welcome to the July Carolinas Weather Group. Tonight we're going to be talking about capturing the storms. Got a bunch of storms tonight. Kind of talking to us about what they go through, how they get to get some more guests. I think that's the most guests we've had on this show since we've started. So a pretty cool night of obviously is to come of Arthur for the North Carolina and South Carolina coast. So a big show in store for us. So it's going to be a while. Let me go ahead and tell you that we do have if you are watching tonight and you have a question for one of the photographers, maybe you want to learn some of the tips of the trade, how to get the best shots, go ahead and send those over and we can ask those throughout the show. Also, if you have some tropical questions about the upcoming tropical event with Arthur, you can also shoot those our way. What we're going to kind of do is kind of focus, since we planned this show about a month ago, we're going to focus most of our time and attention on the storm photography, and then as the show wraps up, or as the show rounds around 9 o'clock, we're going to kind of keep the photographers talking about the tropical aspect of what's going on in the Atlantic. So with all that, I think on the panel ready to go. I'm going to be in and out tonight because if you can see behind me, we're getting ready to get walloped with some strong thunderstorms. So with that, I'll go ahead and say weather, McDowell weather here in the foothills of western North Carolina. And as always, I like to start in the very far east parts and to Ricky. Ricky, go ahead, bud.
All right. Thank you, Scotty. Yeah, I'm Ricky Matthews to cover most of the Charlotte market and the UNC Charlotte area, but for the summer, I'm back here in Hampton, Virginia, where we're looking out for the but instead try Daniel instead.
I think we may be having some technical issues with
you're Ricky. Cutting out really bad, Ricky.
All right, let's go over to Austin. Maybe Ricky can. All right, maybe not. Maybe I'm the one having issues. Can anybody hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
I can hear you. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
I hear you good.
Well, let's go to Catawba County, Joey.
All right, we'll just find one of us that can talk. Yeah, Joey with Catawba County
Somebody
weather.
talk, please.
We're going to try to. Anybody hear me?
Wait, I can hear you, Joey.
Yeah, it's real choppy though.
Okay. Let's see. Daniel, do you want to go? But I think Joey just dropped.
Yeah, I'll try.
Yeah, Daniel.
Guys, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Good. Listen, I'm gonna go whether you can't hear me or not. Here in the western part of North Carolina, McDowell County in particular, we just had a line of, or a cluster of strong thunderstorms just come through. Didn't do anything here, particularly in my house, the Pleasant Gardens community, but Marion and just south of Marion, along Interstate 40, and right now the eastern part of McDowell County, got a pretty strong thunderstorm going on not far from the Burke County line. But, you know, for today, man, it was very warm. I had a high 93. I don't know exactly how accurate that is, but I feel like that's pretty close. Biggest thing I've noticed, and I'd been in Atlanta the last couple of days and got back today, very, very poor visibility, it seems like. And it might be a little ozone going on, just the humidity in the air. And I wonder a little bit if it might be a little bit of the Saharan air layer that's made it across the Atlantic. I know there's some people talking about that yesterday, but I live. The mountains are basically my back door, and I could barely see them today. So, but today it was pretty hot, and these storms have come through, and we'll see what tomorrow brings, and I'll kick it to
I'll,
whoever wants to go next.
I'll take it here. I know we're having some issues, and Daniel brought up a very good point. Ricky, if you can hear me, I'm going to let you kind of answer this. A lot of people here in Western North Carolina kind of seeing the hazy conditions, and you were actually talking about that before we went on live. So you want to kind of give us a breakdown of exactly what happened?
Yeah, I've turned off the camera here, and hopefully you guys can hear me maybe now.
Yes, we can.
All right, I'll leave the camera off just in case maybe that's having some issues. Basically, what you're actually seeing is dust all the way from Africa. It's the Saharan air layer, just as Daniel said, and it's the same type of air that we worry about for tropical cyclone formation, because when you have the dry air and the dust in it, you really can't get very good tropical development. But right now, that air has come so far west, it's actually sitting over the North Carolina, Georgia area and helping to create some of those better sunsets and helping to have some of those particles in the air. There's two different types of particles. There's PM 2.5, which are your larger particles, and there's PM 10, which are your smaller particles. And right now, we've got a lot of those PM 2.5 particles, and that's why it looks so hazy and kind of a milky, hitting those and bouncing off of them.
All right, good deal. Okay, so we're having some issues. I just seen a message from Joey. His system crashed, so he may be back here in a little bit. But tonight we're going to kind of talk about capturing the storm. It's our show's going to be about photography, and none better to have four amazing photographers with us tonight. We have Mark Hauser and Stuart McDaniels, Lee Davis, and Chris Austin, and they're going to be kind of talking to us and about what they do and how they prepare for, getting ready for the storm and stuff like that. Hopefully they're going to tell us some tips and stuff like that. We will talk to each one of them individually, and if we can get screen shares on the work and stuff like that, hopefully we can see some of their pictures too. So with that, I think maybe Ricky is back, so I'm going to pass it off to Ricky so he can start our interview.
All right, why don't we start closest to the Charlotte area with Chris. Many of you may know Chris from those famous pictures of Uptown, the lightning over the skyline, the rainbow shot, and a few other shots that Chris has got over the years. Chris, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about how you got some of those shots.
See, Chris, you have to unmute, bud. Go up to the top of the screen and see the microphone. There you go.
Forgot about it. But yeah, I'm located in Charlotte. I've been here since '06. I guess probably the most well-known shot I've gotten is the rainbow over Charlotte. I did get when I acquired that shot, I was actually out chasing lightning. That's been 2 years ago, and I still have not gotten my lightning shot until just 2 weeks ago. So I did finally manage to get it. Let's see if I can screen share.
There you go.
Can everybody see that?
Yep.
All right. Actually, that was last weekend in Myrtle Beach. My uncle passed away, so we drove down there, and right after the funeral, we had went outside, and I had noticed the storm heading in from the west, going east. And I looked at the radar, and the cloud line and the rain line were dead on each other, which is, of course, the perfect setup for a rainbow. So me and my girl, we took a detour over to the coast and grabbed this shot. But I finally this is my lightning shot, and I've been waiting for this thing forever. This was, I think, 8 seconds. It was 2 different strikes in that 8 seconds.
Yeah, I gotta go.
Actually, this is from I think this is from the same night, but obviously much earlier. What is that?
I'm assuming that was Scotty because he's got severe area,
Fair weather.
and that was probably the Burke County weather alert, which is appropriate for a weather show, I guess. But
Yeah, mine just went off. Evidently, it went severe
Yeah.
up in the northern part of Rutherford County.
live shows, what do you expect? So, so Chris, is there any spot in Charlotte really that you especially love? Are there any areas near Uptown where has
The CDC parties around. You can go down to the next level and stay dry in between waves of rain. So parking decks typically work out better instead of having to jump in and out of your car with your gear.
I know I've ran into that at UNC Charlotte before when the lines of storms come through. We've got parking garages out there I try to head into. Let's further. Is there any shot out there you still want to get over Uptown, or even just in the Charlotte area? Besides maybe a large tornado.
Yeah, exactly. A tornado is the one I don't have yet, so that's the one at the top of my list. It'll take another 5 years to get that one. Well, 10.
Hopefully not for our sake, but I know one day if it happens, you'll be there to get it. So,
Up in the chat, I posted the link. I was trying to figure out. You see that? Just scroll up in the chat. You see that link I posted to that particular hurricane shot?
Oh, that one, yeah. That's almost more like I'm not sure what storm that's from. It looks very similar to a shelf cloud. I'm surprised we don't get those classic shelf clouds as much here in Charlotte as we do in some other areas. But when those big, huge lines of storms move through, it wouldn't shock me if it sets up like that one day.
Because I definitely want something like that with very well-defined. It's compact or contained and well-defined, and you can definitely see the definition of it. So that, anyway, I could see myself driving over to the coast if I could, see something like that.
Yeah. Most of the time, I don't know what that shot was from. I'll do a little bit of research on it, but a lot of times with the hurricanes, you really don't get shots like that because of how the clouds set up and the banding orientation doesn't really show you as well as that. It's more the severe thunderstorm threat that you see those out of. But what type of gear do you typically take out, and do you use anything to protect yourself from rain?
No, just an umbrella. I got a full frame 5D Mark II. I'm kind of saving up. There's supposed to be I like to do very large prints, 6 feet and larger. So I was getting into Mark III. I decided I was going to wait. There's supposed to be a 3D coming out. It's going to be pretty high megapixel, which will jive with the size of prints I like to make.
All right. Why don't we switch to Stuart now, considering big objects? I know he just made a big lens purchase a while back because he does a lot of astronomy photography. Stuart, I've muted you for a minute just because of the audio coming through, so you may need to unmute yourself. But why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and talk a little bit about what your photography is.
All right. Glad to be here tonight. I'm Stuart McDaniel. Live in Lawndale, North Carolina, and most of the time I do a lot of shooting out of my backyard. We've cleaned out some areas in the backyard, so I've got a pretty good western and southern horizon that I can get some pretty good oncoming storms from. And but as far as the new lens you're talking about, I haven't really used it much on the storm chasing. It's more of a wildlife type big lens for the zoomed in shots. Still waiting for that ultimate tornado shot. I could maybe zoom in with it.
All right. Um, you mentioned clearing the land. I know you do a lot of lightning photography. You got a few pictures actually right now in the Weather Channel's contest of a macro burst, and I've seen your lightning pictures floating around. How do you typically go about your lightning photography? And is it just kind of luck of the draw, or do you do timed exposures, or?
Well, most of the time on the lightning, I try to watch the radar, intensely, and the little small isolated storms are usually the best ones, to where you can kind of pinpoint them in a certain area, and it works out good if there's a lot of blue sky around it. It makes the picture a lot more detailed. But the little small isolated tight wound storms, we've got a place that we can go, actually get some mountains in the foreground. But the just finding the spot in the storm where the lightning's coming from is generally what I look for, and just a intense small cell thunderstorms.
Mm-hmm. And Lee, if I can get you to mute your mic when you're not
And
talking,
like the
that way
one
we
we've
don't
got
get.
handed this way now.
All right.
I'm sorry.
No, that's perfect. So what's the main difference? Because I want to hit on both, because I know you do a lot of astronomy photography, and even though this is a weather show, they kind of go together a lot. So what's your main difference when you're out shooting those compared to your storm shots? And is there anything you look for in that case that's impacted by weather?
Well, most of the time, I enjoy shooting satellites. The iridium flares make a really interesting picture, and that's kind of where I got started with the astronomy. The weather around here, as far as seeing and transparency goes with the astronomy, has just been awful for the past few years, and so I've almost just give up on the astronomy part of it, and hopefully catch a few Milky Way shots every now and then. But yeah, it's been really tough to do any astronomy around here lately.
All right, and I know you do a lot of post processing as well in Photoshop. Talk about that a little bit and your process of how you go about that. Do you use Photoshop or Lightroom or?
Most of the time, my standard go-to is Photoshop. I just got the Nick software package a while back, and that's if anybody's into editing photos, that's well worth the money. I find myself using it a lot more than just the regular Photoshop now, and it just depends on the picture. Each picture kind of dictates. There's not really just one set recipe that I use on each picture. It's just really depends on what you're working on at the time.
Hey, Stuart, just to jump in a quick second, because I was jumping out to check radar because we got those storms headed our way. You probably have a nice outflow boundary headed towards your house right about now.
Yeah, it's it's pretty hazy here. Can't even really see much cloud structure outside. But I was watching it on radar, so yeah, it's looking pretty good. It's actually headed right straight to the house here.
All right, so why don't we switch to Mark then before Stuart has to run out on us and grab a few shots himself. Mark, I also muted you just when you weren't talking, so you may need to unmute yourself at the top of the screen if you haven't.
Okay, am I on?
There we go.
Okay.
Yep, I got you.
My name is Mark Hauser, and I live in northwestern Lincoln County. I do most of my work in around, well, really everywhere, but Burke County's, the Limble Gorge is sort of my home away from home. Sort of like Stuart, I didn't clear off any property, and I just heard the rumble of thunder here, so yeah, I'm getting ready to have some too. But I have a really good northwestern view for my lightning shots, and I have to say I'm more of a let the storms chase me. When they come in from the northwest, and like Stuart was sitting there saying, the isolated shots, it's lot of times you go out there, you set up there on the back porch, wait for a storm to come in, and poof, it just peters out on you. And so I guess I I prefer to have the convenience of them coming up right on me. So that's
Mm-hmm.
that's what I like to do. But
So with the Linville,
anywhere the lightning happens and I happen to be, then I've got my camera kit with me, so I can usually try to capture some lightning. Take my tripod and all my stuff with me whenever. So.
mm-hmm. And do you use a shutter release, or do you typically just try long exposures, or what do you typically use for lightning?
Well, I've my first method, the way I've always done it was, wait for the night storms, do the long exposures, about a minute, and it really depends on the light and how strong the lightning is, how bright it is. You may blow out a couple pictures until you figure out, the intensity. But I purchased a lightning trigger I guess it was about 2 years ago, to do in the daytime, and it seems to work pretty good if I could just get the lightning to be where I want the shot to be composed, but it's a little hard. But I've also, occasionally been able to snap a shot, just watching the feeders come down and just, hitting the shutter at the right time. But that's only 1 or 2 shots that I've gotten.
And Mark, a quick question, and I've been in and out with this. So I was just going to ask you, you spoke of the lightning trigger. I don't know if anybody else mentioned that yet. A lot of our people might not know what that is. Could you explain what a lightning trigger does?
Yes, I will. Let me find where I set my camera down at, and I'll be more than happy to show you. This is a Canon 5D Mark III. This is the lightning trigger. If you go online, they call it the lightning bug. Stuart has one of these as well, but it's just a little thing that mounts on your hot shoe. You can adjust the sensitivity, and it has the cord that goes over here. And basically, you can either set the shutter settings the way that you want to, and you can capture the image, or you can do it, like your long exposures, your 30 seconds or whatever, and it's supposed to pick up on the little bit of infrared light that emits right before a lightning strike happens. I don't know. It seems to work. I don't know all the science behind it, but the thing I do notice about it is, at night when you have the distant lightning strikes, you should expect this thing, you'd think it would just trip every time, but it's really about a 10 or 15, probably under 10-mile range that it will pick up a lightning strike. But it's a very handy tool for daylight if you can, get your storms right.
And mentioning different types of lightning, you have, of course, cloud grounding strikes, which are most people know, and the shot that Chris got was a cloud-to-ground lightning strike. Then there's the cloud-to-cloud strike. Do you handle those any differently in terms of how you go about shooting them?
Well, generally, lightning, is a lot, unpredictable and everything. I mean, you kind of watch the storms, you kind of get an idea where it's going to be heading. You kind of get an idea, by following the storm, and on the horizon where your lightning's going to be. So you try to compose that way. And generally what I do is, I have one with the lightning trigger and one with the intervalometer, on bulb setting at night, running about a minute, anywhere from a minute to, less than 30 seconds for a shot, and just over and over. And it's, a lot of time it's just, it's a guessing game. You get a lot of good shots, and, it's, but, the easiest way to do it probably is just do the intervalometer, do the long exposures, to get your shot. That's probably the easiest way to go about that.
And Chris, I'll let you talk. I noticed you threw another image up there. You want to describe that one and how you got it?
Oh, crap. I'm sorry. I was trying to run downstairs real quick. That was, I walked out of Bonefish, and this was all in the sky. Nothing ever came down. And it did this for hours. That was only, there's a bit of the moon up there. super blown out, but it did this forever. But this was at the edge of a cloud, which is what I really like, because you can see some stars back behind it. But that all stayed within the cloud. It was pretty unique. And we actually were driving to Myrtle Beach 2 weeks ago, and I saw a lot of this off in the distance where it never came down. It was all kept in the clouds.
Mm-hmm.
That almost looks like a positive strike.
Yeah, intracloud lightning there in between the cells. Dr. Maggie's going to yell at me, but I'm not 100% sure if that is positive or not. I'll have to figure that one out myself. So let's go ahead and introduce our fourth and final panel member tonight. Certainly one of the youngest members here on the panel. Lee, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and say a little bit about you.
Hey guys, my name's Lee Davis. I'm not using my camera right now. It is broken. I have an iPad. I actually was using my computer a couple minutes ago, but now it's kind of falling apart. But I mainly take photos in Forsyth County and the surrounding counties. You have Yadkin, Surrey, all those places. We actually have a storm to the north right now that is actually pretty big and is mostly slop, but I wish I could have gotten some good photos of it today. Sadly, the structure of them was, of course, hazy. Yeah, but I've gotten some pretty good photos lately of some strikes. I've been posting a lot lately on the Facebook page, and you guys have seen some of the shots of the cloud-to-ground strikes that I had.
Yeah, I saw you got a few shots recently of some of the storms we've been moving through. It's been a really great couple of weeks for Charlotte photographers when it comes to lightning. Ever since I've left, it seems like it's been nonstop severe thunderstorms in the Charlotte market or up in the mountain areas there, and I think we just lost Lee. But Stuart, you're closest over to the mountain. Mark as well. Is there anything that you guys look for in the mountain storms that you don't look for, say, in some other cells? Or is there anything they do differently than some of the other cells?
No, not particularly. Just like I said before, the tight wound storms that stay together in a real tight cell make the best shots. But there's really not any difference. Just the
Hey guys,
big
sorry about that.
strong cells is probably the best producer.
All right. We got Lee back, so I don't want to skimp out on him. So let's go back to you, Lee, and talk a little bit more. So in addition to the lightning photography, I realized you've got a few structure shots the other day. Typically, what's the best time of day to get those type of shots?
Well, I got that shot actually. I'm a pretty big golfer. I actually live right next to a golf course. And Scotty probably likes that too. But I was finishing 9 holes, and I turned around, and I was telling David made this too. I said and there's a cloud behind there. I was like, it's just a boring old cloud that just developed. Nothing special about it. And I went up to the pro shop and saw a little bit of a shelf on it. So I went up to the highest point I could get, and I tried to get a photo of it. That was around probably 4 o'clock. But that shot was pretty good of the structure of the storm. That's usually when I would get them. It's a nice time of the day that get an image like that. But
and I know we've talked a little bit about lightning photography during the daytime or nighttime, and I've always thought about neutral density filters being used maybe to try not to blow out your shots. Do you guys have any thoughts on that, or how do you go about not letting the city lights totally blow out all your lightning shots?
That's a tough one. You could use a circular polarizer. I've seen a lot of people use those for photography. Sometimes you'll edit them with maybe like Lightroom or a program like that. I've done a couple with that. I don't know. Maybe one of you guys can tell me. There's a lot. There's some ways, but I don't know the best ones totally.
the neutral density filter would work good if you had a storm that had a real intense cloud to ground strikes. But that would be the best use for that. But storms are so dynamic and so unpredictable. Once you've got 8 or 10 strikes, and you think, yeah, I got a good storm now. You get set up for it, and 30 seconds later, it's done change structure completely. So, it's just kind of a fly by wire to catch the storms.
Mm-hmm. And Chris, I know you deal with a lot of the city lights. Is there anything you do particularly to try to limit some of those? Your shots always seem to come out perfect, but
yeah, no. There's for every one that comes out perfect, there's 5,000 that did not. No, I typically try and expose, for the setting, and I take the intervalometer approach, and between 8 and 15 seconds, and whatever gets me that type of length, be it a neutral density or ISO and aperture change, whatever gets me to 8 to 15 is typically where I stick, and base it on the background. And then, if you shoot in raw, you have a lot of latitude with getting back the, if you have a serious blowout and you're in raw, you can salvage that a lot of the time. But, like with JPEG, you certainly cannot. So, like the lightning shot, it was extremely blown out, or my recent one, and I was able to pull it back and, get the definition again, because it was really expanded. It's not easy, and like you were just saying, it's, you can have a real weak strike or an extremely strong one, but I always go for the setting, and then hopefully the lightning or whatever I'm shooting will add to it. But I always just base it on the scene that I'm, the skyline shot typically is what I'm shooting anyway.
Just take the lightning as a bonus.
Yes, exactly. It's an additive, right?
That's something I've never thought. I do a lot of aviation photography, and a lot of my friends shoot in raw. But most of the time, I'm dealing with perfect conditions for air shows, middle of the afternoon, not having to worry about too much light. But I guess shooting in raw with lightning really does give you that much, ability to edit it afterwards.
Yeah, you have, like I said, you have a lot of latitude to salvage something that otherwise, in a compressed form, or in a JPEG form, you could not get back.
Mm-hmm. And for those that don't know, when you take photos most of the time on a DSLR nowadays, you can choose what style of picture you want to take, a JPEG compressed image or shoot in RAW, which is where the camera doesn't compress the image beforehand. A lot of times you do post-processing after that and convert it into a JPEG to get the shot that most people would download from the internet or upload to Facebook. It's not very fond of uploading RAW straight to Facebook because it doesn't know how to handle the file extensions. So,
yeah.
Any other big tips that you guys have for maybe people beginning or thinking about doing lightning photography, storm structure photography, anything like that?
I would bring up the fact that a tripod is a good thing to have.
Yes.
Absolutely.
It's definitely helps with stabilizing the image, especially with those long shutters. That's you definitely need those for a good shot. If you're all shaky and while you're taking a lightning strike, you don't have a tripod, your shots are going to be out of focus and blurry. So, a lot of you guys can, explain more about that, but.
And as well, if you have image stabilizer, well, Canon is IS for image stabilizer, Nikon is VR for vibration reduction. But if it's on a tripod, turn those off.
Yes.
It will actually add blur.
See, even I'm learning things tonight, so I appreciate this because I've never thought about shooting RAW. I've never thought about the vibration reduction on the tripods, but good things to bring up as we approach storm season and with me heading down to the Outer Banks to meet this hurricane. So
another thing to consider is also a lot of times is to lock your focus or put it in manual focus once you get the shot set up, so you don't have to worry about it hunting when you're sitting there trying to activate the shutter release. So,
yeah, that's an excellent point. In the dark, sometimes it won't focus.
Very hard. And also take you a few test shots before you set up. Make sure, and you can look on the image on the back of the camera, make sure that if you have something interesting in the foreground, it will be in focus. So, when you take those shots and get them on the computer big screen, you're like, man, you got all these amazing shots of lightning, and they're all fuzzy, because your focus is off.
I've been there before.
I have too.
I have a quick question. I was going to ask you guys, and any of you can answer this, but you guys were talking about different cameras and things. What would be a great starter camera? Let's say somebody's going out there. They want to spend a little bit of money. They don't want to spend a lot of money, but they want to get a good camera they can go out and film, some weather photography with. Where would you send them? What would be the first thing to start with?
Joey, you're going to get us into the Nikon versus Canon argument here.
Nikon.
Both. Can't go wrong with any of them. I shoot with a guy. He's got a Sony and he does some great stuff. Any camera made these days is fantastic.
You're basically just limited by what your budget is, because like Chris just said, there's a lot of the point and shoot cameras, are as good as any of the other cameras, and just the operator behind it's the key. So just kind of figure out what your budget is, and then look and see what you can afford with that.
I would bring up if you want a camera that's kind of a lower price. I got a deal on the D3200, which is the one I have right now, and it's really helpful. It has you can put all the kits on it, you can put all the different lenses on it. It's a great camera. It's the one I'm taking the photos with. But I love that camera so far.
The big thing I would suggest is to have some camera. The features that you want to look for is like manual mode, to be able to put this thing in manual, some sort of bulb setting, or a way to put an intervalometer on it, or just a thing to have a remote shutter release, and just a way to put it in manual focus is really the big things. And a lot of the DSLRs are set up that way, even the the lower end ones, and the higher end cameras, like Chris shoots a 5D Mark II, I shoot a 5D Mark III. They're very high end cameras. And what they do good is see low light. They do really good at that, but you don't really need that for lightning photography. ISO 100 to 400 range is what I personally use, and sometimes I bump it up and down, but any entry level DSLR or even some of the new mirrorless cameras, as long as they have those options, and they do make those lightning triggers for different cameras. For like the OMD, I have an OMD that I use as well. So any camera that you can get some sort of remote release on it, that'll be a real boon to you when you try lightning photography.
All right. Well, one step past that, then, since obviously brand and things like that, let's talk about money. How much money would a person really need to spend to get a good, decent setup, to film photography? I know you can spend as much as you want, but let's just talk on the low end. How much can somebody go in and expect they probably are going to have to fork out to get a really decent camera that'll work?
I just real quick did the T4i is a really nice Canon, and the 3200 and the 5000 series for the Nikon side, but $700 with the kit lens. That was the T4, and then let's say the 3200 Nikon.
Yeah, I was gonna say anywhere between $500 and $800 to get you going.
Yeah.
And if you do have a choice, a lot of them have lenses. The 18 to 55 kit lens that comes with most of them will get you that wide angle sky that you want for the lightning.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, that 3200 he was just talking about, $400 with the kit lens. Oh wait, that's
You guys just reminded me why I never got into photography with my weather. So my next question is, to me, that sounds like a lot of money. I mean, are there places? Where would you suggest? There's somewhere I could go maybe to find a used camera. Is there somebody out there? Are there ways to spend less money and still be able to get this kind of quality camera? I mean, maybe a used camera. I hear there's rental places, ways you can rent cameras. Do you have any tips for things like that, maybe?
I gotta tell you, for $500, that really isn't much. You can from B&H. I tend to do a lot of business with B&H. $476 for that Nikon 3200 with an 18 to 55 kit lens. That's an awesome deal.
And you also
really isn't much if you're gonna put some sort of serious.
It's an awesome deal. It is.
Exactly.
Yeah,
it's a great deal, and they also can one of the other great deals is when they release the next version of that camera, like the T5i. You can get the T4i, the T3i, any of those. I mean, I started off on the T1i, and that thing's, I'm still amazed at the quality of the pictures I can get out of that when I do my time lapse stuff.
We do a lot of we do a lot of time lapse stuff. We fix them and we cover some very long term construction stuff. But I use the T3i because it's the sweet spot right now. We pick them up for $280 all the time because in time lapse you really rip through them fast.
Yeah.
They only have maybe 100,000 shutter clicks on them, and then odd things start happening. So you just pretty much just throw it away because it's more expensive to fix it than just buy another one.
Okay, well, that takes me to my next question. If I spend $500-$600 on a camera, how long are we talking I can use this before something goes bad? And I mean, in general, I know that sometimes you get one that's at 100, you use it 100 times and it's done. But my question, I mean, what kind of life expectancy can I expect out of one of those expensive cameras? Or before it's time that I need to upgrade, like a computer. A few years you need to upgrade. I mean, how long would that $500-$600 last me?
With the camera, there's really not any upgrade unless you just absolutely want to upgrade it.
Yeah,
my mother-in-law is shooting a 350D Canon, which was I don't remember how old that thing is, but it's probably it was 8.1 megapixels. I don't know exact date, but I know it's been close 10 years, and the only thing she had problem with was the LCD screen. The thing's still clicking good. I mean, you get a quality DSLR from Canon, Nikon, Sony, pretty much anybody that makes that has longevity, that's been around in the market. I think that you're going to be yeah, of course, yeah, you may, once you get it, you may want to upgrade, but, there's people make amazing images with the low-end cameras. You don't have to have that to make, awesome images, the weather, whatever. The big thing is if you do something professional where you need that low light, like doing wedding photography inside churches where you can't use flashes, that's where you need that expensive camera. But for just your general everyday, 95% of what average people shoot, no, you don't need that. You can just get by with the low end cameras, and they'll last you as long as you want to.
And the average person's not going to wear it out either.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's only a couple considerations, and one is the shutter actuations. About 75,000. And think about that, 75,000 pictures. How long is it going to take you to do that? Now, if you do a lot of, it's your habit that's going to wear out the shutter. You know what I mean? And then, the increasing megapixels. For what I do, I definitely like, the bigger the better, and that's why I'm holding off for this, 30 to 40 megapixel body next. They're coming, like that 3200 is 24 megapixel. Who needs it more than that for, somebody other than us? But, I take even my 21 megapixel, I print a 90 inch, that rainbow is 90 inches big, and it looks awesome, so this 32 would be fantastic for a long time. So you're not, megapixel need isn't really there.
That was actually going to be my next question. You guys are talking about megapixels, and that's, every time I hear people talk about a camera, like especially like a camera phone, you always hear the more megapixels, and it's got this many, what do you need? I mean, is that just I don't know? I compare it to maybe cars. I can buy a 400 horse. I could buy a 400 horsepower car or a 600 horsepower car. Do I need 600? I mean, is 400 good enough? What do you need in a megapixels?
It comes down to print size. So, like my 5D, I think, as an example, shoots 5,000 pixels on the long edge. And if you wanted to do, I typically make sure I shoot 192 dots per inch on most prints. If you don't want to print anything more than 30 inches, you don't ever need to go over, 20 megapixels as a rule. It'll look fantastic.
So if I'm just wanting to print, 5x7 pictures for my photo album, I obviously wouldn't need very many megapixels. Is that what you're telling me?
Absolutely. A 12 would be fine for some.
I will say a 10 would do you great.
Yeah.
Well, Ricky, I'll turn it back over to you. That's about all the questions I had, and you guys can see. I tell people all the time, I started chasing storms when I was like 14, and I have very few pictures of them because, for some reason, it never intrigued me. I went out there, I wanted to be in the storm. I never really cared about getting a picture of it. I don't know why.
Well, I mean, Joey, I'm in the same. Go ahead, Stuart.
I'm gonna say too, and cameras are kind of like guns. The one you've got with you is the best one, when you need it.
And I hate to say it, most of the time when I'm chasing, that's my cell phone because I don't have time to whip out everything else.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, there's a whole industry around cell phone photography right now too.
I never got a storm picture until they put cameras on cell phones.
All right. So we're getting close to 9 o'clock, so why don't we go ahead and we'll go through all four of you and let you plug yourself, plug your websites, your Facebook pages, and anything like that, and where people can check your photography at. We start with Chris or whoever.
Yeah, I'll start. Mine is chrisaustin.net, and you can find our Facebook and Flickr from there. My specialty is definitely the Charlotte skyline and Charlotte-related pictures. But I do like to travel, so Arizona, out west, I've got a lot of out west work. And we're actually getting ready to go to Utah next.
And if nobody's ever actually put eyes on Chris's rainbow over Charlotte picture on a metal frame or a metal, however it is, the way they do that, I've seen it. It's amazing.
Yeah, the metal stuff is just amazing. I've never seen anything like it. And that's pretty much what I focus on is the way it handles the light. You can throw a lot of people that come into my display often ask, is there a light behind it? And it's just the way it bounces. If you hit light on the front of it, it'll bounce it back through the ink, and you'll swear it's lit from the back. It's really cool stuff.
Chris, I've got to get the school department in Charlotte to buy a few of your shots and put them up in our lab because right now we've got some of our displays up there that have been drawings that we made a few years ago, and it's in dire need of replacement. So we'll have to have them talk to you. So
we're doing we did some Bearden Park work, and we're putting together some stuff for the Parks and Rec office right now. But yeah, give me a call. We'll find something.
All right, cool. Stuart?
Yeah, I post a lot of stuff on Facebook. Is just kind of my main connection. You can also find me at stuartmcdaniel.com, and also on I do the selling of stuff on Fine Arts America. Just search for Stuart McDaniel, and you can pick me up there on Fine Arts America if you see anything that you'd like to purchase.
All right.
Hey guys, I'm back. Just wanted to say.
All right. Well, we'll go ahead and switch to you, Lee, if you want to plug yourself and tell people where they can check out your shop.
Well, you can check me out on Facebook. I post there a lot, or you can check me out on Flickr. I use that a lot. If you guys want the link, just you can check it out on my Facebook, or you can just message me. I'll send you the link. I'm working on selling some of these images. But I need to get I'm trying to get some more right now. Today wasn't a day to get some, but hopefully another day. But yeah, you guys can find me on Flickr and Facebook.
All right. And finally, Mark.
I was going to ask Stuart how much the cat was that was walking around his neck there. You can look at me up at markstevenhauser.com. I do most of my stuff on Facebook, a little bit on Flickr. The website will get you there, and also do Twitter. I don't do much Twittering. The Hacktographer. That's really about it. And come check me out.
Mark, aren't you and Stuart in some kind of contest that you want to fill in the viewers about?
Oh yeah, we're both in the weather channel. What is it? It's Amazing Out There photo contest, and I've submitted one, and I don't know if you can see it. And Chris was talking about the Table Rock Fire, or printing on metallic prints, and how the light comes out, and right there's a metallic print I had done from Sizzle Pics, but that's the one picture I entered. But yeah, I agree with him totally on metallic prints. Stuart has an awesome shot of lightning. Look both of us up. We'd appreciate you vote for whichever one that you like more. You can vote once a day until July 13th, and keep them coming, because we got to get in 25th place here. We're just we're getting closer, but we're also getting a little farther away. So any votes would really help.
Yeah, they're going to take the top 25 in each category. There's 3 categories, and have 4 professional, world-renowned photographers vote for the best in show and for the $15,000 prize, and then they're going to have, I think, first, second, and third in each of the other categories. So please go vote for us.
And Mark, yours is of the Table Rock Fire, correct?
That is correct.
That's a pretty awesome shot, by the way. And Stuart, yours is too. I love the lightning one, but the Table Rock Fire, that's near and dear to my heart, as it was just up the mountain about 10 miles or so. So that was a pretty cool shot.
There's a lot of great shots in there, So, I would say, vote for me, or but. Just vote for whichever one that you like, but please vote whichever one, vote daily until the 13th, because we need your help.
and if you guys get us a link to that, I'm sure we'll get them up on the page and spread that word for you guys.
Okay, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, with that, if Scotty and you're back and you don't have any more severe storms, I'll hand it over to you and we can wrap up everything.
Yeah, I think the storms are dying out. Did get a few reports out of McDowell County of some trees down near the Burke County, McDowell County line. So kind of a stormy afternoon here in the foothills. But I do want to thank Chris and Stuart and Lee and Mark for coming on. Please go check out their pictures. They all do a great job at what they do. And anytime that we have storm action in the North Carolina area, you can always tune in to NBC Charlotte. You'll probably see one of their photos on there with Brad Panovich showing it off. So I want to thank those guys for coming on, and it's pretty cool. And also check out Stuart's page, because he's got this camera set up in his backyard that if you ever see a shooting star or whatever, Stuart's all the time got it on there, and he's always showing some footage of some astronomy as well. So pretty cool with that. But thanks everyone for tuning in to the Capturing the Storm photography show. Go check these guys out, and I want to thank all 4 of them for coming on tonight and spending a little time with us on their Wednesday afternoon, where there's storms in the area and they could be out shooting storms right now. So thanks to you guys coming on. I guess what we're going to do right now is kind of transition into talking about the tropics and the tropical storm off the Florida coast right now. You guys are more than welcome to hang on and talk about it if you want to. If you don't want to, you're free to go. Kind of transition from one topic to the other. I have no dog in this fight with the tropical weather, so I'm going to turn it over to, I know Austin's on here, and Ricky. They're a little bit more closer to the storm, so you guys go ahead and take it from here.
Yeah, I guess this is my little deal here, and Austin as well. I guess you're in Bladen County, right, Austin?
Yes.
All right, so you may see some impacts. My area may see some impacts, but kind of smack dab in between is where we expect the biggest impacts to be. Let me set up the screen share here and tell you what's going on with this storm right now. Uh, if that's coming over, I hope it is. This is the water vapor imagery right now of what is miles per hour, which is almost a hurricane, miles per hour, sustained winds. Off towards the north. Over the next couple of days, what the National Hurricane expects to happen is they expect the storm to head towards the North Carolina coastline and then make a turn off towards the northeast eventually and head up towards the New England area. The question is, when does it make that turn? I think we're probably going to see a storm that shows up a little bit, doesn't make the turn as early as the Weather Service is predicting, and I'll back that up here in a minute. We'll switch over to, actually, let's go ahead and just loop this. It's going to take a minute for the data to load in because I didn't have it open before, but as all that loads in, you'll see the thunderstorm activity has kind of died off a little bit this afternoon as we've gone into some of the evening hours and the dry air has worked in. That's what I really want to hit on. You see all this orange here in your charts. That's a lot of dry air, and the system is going to have to overcome that. Tropical systems don't really like dry air. They want that warm water from the ocean, they want surface in the top of the clouds, and when you get that dry air mixing in the mid-levels systems. But having that, we think Arthur is it'll be able to overcome that. And one of the interesting things that's happened today is it's such a small system, and often when you get the dry air mixing in, it tends to enhance to get larger. That hasn't really happened, and that concerns me a little bit because a smaller system is able to intensify a little bit easier than some of the systems that are smaller than the other ones. So I'll switch it to a different screen share here, and we'll show you some of the model graphics and what we think is going to happen over the next days with this storm. So I'll bring up my web, break them down a little bit, and talk about what they manifests, and here are two of our global range models. Not run as high of resolution, if I can spit that out, as some of the other models we have, but for the last couple of days, they've been doing a decent job, and the Euro picked up on this storm before really any of the other storms had it coming right at the coastline at this intensity. So this is the 12 o'clock run from earlier today of the European. This is the 10-meter wind speed, and we'll step it out in time. This is going into tomorrow morning. You see the storm starts to drift north, and then it approaches the coastline of North Carolina as we go to the afternoon. It's kind of off the South Carolina coast, and then it starts to head up towards the North Carolina coastline as we head into the overnight hours. When it impacts will likely be the overnight hours. So, and I'm not sure why my graphic isn't coming across. Come on, maybe. All right, well, we'll switch to the other model and show you that instead because it wants to cooperate. So this is the GFS model, or the American model, and you notice how close it gets to the tip of southern North Carolina. It's really trended west through the last couple of runs, and a lot of our models have trended west, which is why I'm personally, and Austin, you can throw your thoughts in here in a moment as well, really worried for the areas basically in between kind of the Morehead City area east to Cape Hatteras. That's the area where I'm really concerned about the impacts of this storm and the potential for some storm surge, the potential for some very gusty winds up to hurricane force. sustained tropical storm force winds, and some heavy rain and isolated tornadoes. It seems like all the models this evening have been trending west, and the Hurricane Center hasn't really trended their forecast too far west yet. They've got it basically right on Hatteras, where it's been the last couple of days, but it'll be interesting, Austin, at the 11 o'clock advisory, whether they decide to shift it further west or not. Maybe Austin's here.
All right, I'm here.
Okay. Any thoughts on that? I see Russell's joining us now, which is perfect timing considering he's right where I think this storm may make landfall.
I'm trying to get something pulled up.
I don't think either. All right. So while you do that, I'll go ahead and another graphic. Bring up these. Whoops. This is the model data for the 18Z analysis, so we don't have the 0Z analysis in yet. But notice the clustering once again. Basically right over Hatteras, or just slightly offshore, but you see a few of those members far west of where the other models are. So it's really still a cone of uncertainty, I would say, basically from the North Carolina-South Carolina border east would be the areas I would be most concerned about having significant impacts from this system. Did you get yours up there?
It's working on it.
Okay. And we've lost Russell as well, but in the meantime, let's talk about one last thing regarding this, and hopefully Russell will be back in here and he can hit on that. Let's bring up the storm surge graphic, which is just new from the Hurricane Center. This is a new product they're trying out this year. It's called Storm Surge Flooding Maps, or the Inundation Maps. And basically, it's a Google map with potential storm surge overlaid on it, to where you can zoom in to your area and see how much water may end up in those regions. So we'll zoom into the Beaufort area, the Morehead City area. The blue colors there are potential for up to 3 feet of water. The yellow is for potentially up greater than 3 feet of water. I had to go check the legend there. But you notice some of those coastal areas along Beaufort and out towards the barrier islands there, up towards the areas near Atlantic, and then especially as you go towards Ocracoke, a lot of that area could be impacted by over 3 to maybe as much as 6 feet of water in some of those areas. I know there is a mandatory evacuation out for Hyde County, or voluntary evacuation for Hyde County, mandatory evacuation for Hatteras Island here on the Outer Banks, and when you zoom in, you can see why, with the potential for a lot of that area to be covered by up to 3 feet of water, and especially up towards the vulnerable areas of NC-12 where the bridge always likes to wash out. We may have a lot of flooding up there in that region as well. So those are all the different things we're going to be watching. The main keys we're going to be watching over the next 12 to probably 20 hours is, when does the storm significantly turn towards the northeast? When does it make that shift? And then when will we see any intensification? Because that's going to be key to these areas down near Rodanthe and Salvo and the Pea Island area, and eventually Buxton and Hatteras as well, to potential impacts they see from this system as we go through the next 24 hours or so.
Yeah, Ricky, I was just going to jump.
Or Joey?
Yeah, I was just going to jump in real quick just to say, talking about Hatteras Island and the Outer Banks, I've spent a good bit of time down there. The area, what they call the S-curves, which is right as you come into Rodanthe, or Rodanthe, Wave, Salvo, those three towns are right together. Right as you come into Rodanthe, there's the S-curves. That's where that last storm cut a new inlet, and they put in a temporary bridge. I could probably say at this point I would go almost 90% sure that that area will probably overwash completely at some point during the storm and cut that island off for at least, at the least a few hours, possibly for a few days. They do have a temporary temporary ferry system that can take you from the Roanoke Island area down to Rodanthe. It's a long ferry ride, unfortunately, but they can do that as a temporary thing. That will get people get supplies on the island and get the people off the island. But again, that's if anybody's on that island or plans on going to the island, it would be a good idea to get yourself off of that island tomorrow and not return back to that island if you can return back sometime on Friday. Because likely, once you get on there, you will be cut off and not be able to get off the island if you're already on there.
And that's a key point. It's not so much, the height of the storm that's the issue. It's sometimes after the storm.
And
People
also, when you talk
who
about
live on Hatteras, may know that, but the tourists that live out there, or if you're watching and you have family members who went out towards the Outer Banks for the that's one of the things I think we're going to have to really think about is the people going there for life and who may be underestimating the potential for some of these big waves and the storm surge and the hurricane force winds to move into the area, especially in the overnight hours.
Yeah, I was just going to add in that a weak Category 1 hurricane on the Outer Banks is no joke. Don't get me wrong, the people that live there will laugh at a Category 1 hurricane, but for those, what do you call, land lovers, us mainland folks, Category 1 hurricane on the Outer Banks is definitely not something you want to go out and test yourself on. To be honest with you, I've been on the Outer Banks in just regular general afternoon thunderstorms, not even severe. I tell people all the time that when you're out on the banks, no matter what kind of storm it is, it's 10 times worse on the Outer Banks than it is on the inland. And it just, if it's not actually 10 times worse, it seems like that because, like I said, no matter which way the wind's coming, north, south, east, west, there's nothing to slow it down. There's nothing to inhibit the wind out there. The Pamlico Sound is a very, very large body of water. So if the winds are coming from the east, or I'm sorry, if the winds are coming from the west, they have plenty of plenty of time to pick up lots of speed. And like I said, there's nothing there to there's no friction. There's no friction on the sound to slow down any of that wind. So a Category 1 hurricane on the Outer Banks, I promise you, I promise you, if you've never experienced a Category 1 on the Outer Banks, it'll probably be the worst storm you've ever seen in your life. Even if you lived through Hurricane Hugo, on the Outer Banks, you can multiply it by 10. So a Category 1 is still nothing to joke about for people who aren't used to it. Those people on the Outer Banks, they can care less. They're used to it. They know what to do. They know the drill. I've seen those guys down there on riding jet skis up and down Highway 12. Like, oh well, another storm, so we have to ride our jet skis to the store. So those guys don't care. But to people who aren't used to it, that's a serious deal out there.
And as I mentioned earlier, Dare County officials have ordered a mandatory evacuation for the Hatteras Island area. And, mandatory evacuations, I think a lot of people get misled. It doesn't mean you're forced to leave in most cases. It just means that they're not going to come get you. So that's the key. If you may be saying, "No, I'm just going to stay anyway," and then something bad happens, they'll always come get me. No, that's not the case. That's actually mandatory evacuations mean, and it's the whole point to try to get people out so rescuers don't have to put themselves in danger to come get you during the height of the storm. And a lot of fire agencies and other agencies won't respond when the winds get over tropical storm force sustained because it's dangerous to them and it's dangerous to their equipment as well, trying to go out there and rescue people. So something else to keep in mind as the storm approaches and you try to make your decisions on what you're going to do. One of the things we're going to have to consider too, Joey, as the system moves up and it approaches North Carolina, the Buxton and Hatteras areas, you're going to get all the water pushing onto the ocean side of the islands first. And then as the system pulls away with the counterclockwise rotation around the low pressure area in the center of the storm, you're going to get the winds shifting out towards the northwest, and the winds are going to push all the water towards the other side of the island. You're going to get sound side flooding. And that's often what we see the biggest impact from is that sound side flooding.
Yeah, I was going to say that usually that's the time when that's usually the worst of the flooding for the Outer Banks. It's the sound side. If you've ever been to the Outer Banks, you'll know what I'm talking about. If you drove down Highway 12, if you're going south on Highway 12, you look left toward the ocean, there's 20, 30-foot tall sand dunes in a lot of places, and those do a pretty decent job of keeping the water out. Obviously, in a long-duration storm, eventually they will wear down and water will breach those sand dunes. But usually they do their job. The problem is when those winds turn around and start blowing the sound water onto the island, if you look to your right going down Highway 12, it's flat. You don't see any kind of dunes between you and that water, and then that water, 2 or 3 feet of water rise, 2 or 3 feet of water rise from the sound side, and that island's flooded. So usually 90% of the time that's where the problem comes in. And those islands down there, they will flood even in your run-of-the-mill nor'easter storms that we have during the winter. Those things that kind of move out the East Coast that sometimes give us snow, they'll completely overwash those islands. And those are not even, most of them are not even hurricane-force winds. We're not talking about a storm this strong. That's why I say a Category 1 hurricane on the Outer Banks is no joke.
Yep, I completely agree with you because some of those areas flood even with some heavy rain events, water flooding as well. So
I've even seen those.
It'll be interesting to watch this system.
I've even seen those the sound side cause overwash flooding, even in I won't say it's not typically a derecho, but in something similar to a derecho, in a squall line of storms that just moves across eastern North Carolina, and an outflow boundary pushes out, and you get, say, 60, 70 mile per hour winds, and it will push water over the islands just from that. So hurricanes definitely the island will definitely be breached. There's somewhere at some point along Hatteras Island, the ocean and the sound will meet at some point during this storm. I can guarantee that.
And I completely agree with you. As living here in Hampton Roads, we always hear about the flooding.
Did we lose you there, Ricky? I'm not hearing you anymore. Sounds like we did. Or maybe I'm lost.
I can't hear.
I can hear you guys if that.
To be a hurricane later tonight anyway, so the 11 o'clock advisory will probably end up being a hurricane, I would imagine.
I just missed about
Russell,
half
I
of what
see
you said.
you're back on here now. You want to talk a little bit? Well, regardless, I think we've got Russell on. I think you're muted if you don't know that.
How are y'all doing tonight? Yeah, everything's been in and out. Can hardly hear what. It's hard to hear what everybody was saying because everything's been going in and out. But yeah, everything I've talked about the Outer Banks, like the Hatteras and up in Nags Head and down at Ocracoke, everything seems true. But I like to talk more about the Crystal Coast. Even they are prone to flooding, and what I have is a screen share of all the tropical models of where they think Arthur may track, and I've broken it down by drawing on paint. Let's see if I can get that up real quick. Of where the center may track, and it's kind of not important where the center may track because the storm itself is around 300 miles wide, and the tropical storm force wind is increasing in width from away from the model. Let's see if I can get that up. So here I have all the models, and I got it all, pretty much drawn to where the track may go. It can go as far west as Oak Island, Wilmington, Jacksonville, or it can go, remain out to sea. And down the middle, you can see where it can easily go into Moorhead, Havelock, Beaufort, and then it can track across the Pimlico Sound, and then out it goes. And the track is kind of important. If it tracks inland, there's more impact as far as the Crystal Coast and the islands. There's more higher risk of tornadoes. There's higher winds and a larger storm surge. So along the Crystal Coast, especially from Emerald Isle to Fort Macon, here in Beaufort, down east like Stacy, Davis, Cedar Island, those areas are also typically prone for flooding as well. And let's see if I can get rid of this. There we go. And so as the storm comes in, we can see just the water come in from the ocean as the wind's coming from the east and southeast, and we'll see the waves crank up as well. The National Weather Service in Newport suggesting around 12 to 15 foot seas tomorrow, especially tomorrow night into Friday morning. And as the waves are coming in, it's pushing in all that water. We are expecting a 2 to 4 foot rise, which will flood a lot of the low-lying areas, especially down east. And, of course, the threat of tornadoes as we get water spots to develop offshore. They'll move onshore. And it's just a lot to look at. And what I like to teach everybody else is that there are not two storms alike, and each storm can create their own havocs and create their own scars, basically. And so just listen to the officials. If you're new to the area, if you're haven't experienced any hurricanes on the coast, just listen to the officials and just follow what they ask you to do, and everything will be okay.
I think that's the key of it, is just be smart, and as the governor of North Carolina said, and I loved his quote, don't put your stupid hat on. So that seems to be the key to surviving any type of severe weather or anything, really, is just be smart about it. Most of the deaths in tropical cyclones come before and actually after the storm due to the cleanup or preparation people during themselves, not so much during the storm. So with that, any other final thoughts, Russell, or we'll try to wrap this up and maybe do another special update on it tomorrow as it approaches us?
I would say that continue to watch the local trusted weather source. Of course, you have all of us here from the Carolina Weather Discussion. You have me. I run Severe Weather Eastern North Carolina that covers Central and Eastern North Carolina. I'm always on it. You can find tons of stuff on there. Just visit the site. You'll find updated warnings, advisories, any evacuations, basically everything. And I would say that hang on to your hats, Outer Banks and Crystal Coast. It's going to be a long night tomorrow.
And we'll be up for it, more than likely. So with that, I'll wrap this up tonight. Go ahead. Awesome.
All right, I did want to add, y'all might really want to go follow Mr. Russell's page and subscribe to his updates. He has about everything on there, evacuations and anything that the county officials have said. That's where I learn a lot of my stuff from.
Yeah, Russell will be working overdrive tonight, I'm sure, and tomorrow night as well. I'm going to probably have to buy him a few 5-hour energies when I drive down there, just so he'll stay awake.
Russell, I was going to say, if we can, tomorrow afternoon, evening, if we can, obviously, if you can keep some sort of internet connection down there, we'd love to maybe get on here live and maybe see if you can get us some kind of update from what's going on from there at your house. As you could actually be right square in the center landfall of this thing.
Yeah, and Russell, we'll talk about it when I get there, or I'll talk to you about it tonight, but we'll see what we can set up and maybe get a live stream or something going as well. So. Yeah,
I forgot. Yeah, Ricky, you're going to be down there also. That's right.
Yeah, he's going to stay here and keep me company.
And hopefully not die together. So that's the key.
Just remember, guys, as long as you're up and out of the water, you're safe in a storm. The wind, you can survive the wind. Just get out of the water.
Yep, that's the key, really.
Yeah, we'll be fine here in Beaufort.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us on the Carolina weather discussion tonight. I know Scotty's over there enjoying his dinner, so I'll wrap it up for him instead. The show usually comes on Wednesday nights at 8 o'clock. Our next show, we have a few more guests lined up, I believe, for the next couple of weeks, so you'll want to tune in for those, and, of course, tune in tomorrow to get the latest on what will likely be Hurricane Arthur at the time of that show. So thanks for joining us tonight. And remember, if it's not a Carolina weather discussion, it's not a discussion at all.